Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chronicles of Hollywood History, Past, Present, and Future. Welcome. And here now, Corey Gomez.
Hi, Corey.
Hi. Thank you so much for talking to me. It's an honor.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me. I haven't done an interview for a while, so looking forward to it.
Here's what's weird is I'm a really big fan, but I mean, like, of course, I know you from 21 Jump Street, but believe it or not, I was the biggest fan of V.I.P. back in the day.
Classic. That's music to my ears because I'm actually quite fond of the experience on that because they were just a lovely group of ladies, inside and out, and the producers were quite generous with me, and it was a fun, very cool character, and so even though the show is one of those guilty pleasures, I've been told, and surprisingly, I've met a few journalists, just people in general, who will confess that they watched the show and like the show. So it's great to hear that, truly.
I mean, it was great. You had a Ducati. Shaw Baker had a Prowler. I think Pam drove a Viper. I mean, it was an awesome. I really miss syndicated television. I was so sad when it went away.
Syndicated television. That term is almost like a different lifetime now. Times are changing.
Now, are you here do you live in the States or do you live over in Vietnam?
Well, as I'm sitting here with you, I'm sitting in Los Angeles. I just recently, meaning about a couple weeks ago, I've just relocated my whole family, my wife and my two daughters, back to L.A. after spending about 10 years in Vietnam.
Yeah, I watched The Legend is Alive. I had to watch like a bootleg.
Oh, wow. You watched that too?
Yeah, I watched
Unbelievable.
And I'm a huge fan of The Rebel as well. When Dragon Dynasty put out that set, I really liked it.
They did a great job with the behind the scenes with The Rebel. Yeah. Again, you mentioned two of my actually favorite movies that I've done in my career. I'm quite fond of those two movies, especially Legend is Alive. It's an odd little film, but it was quite. It's one of those films in Vietnam when it came out. I don't know how much of a history of the film but the director of that film is known for that sort of art house type of Vietnamese art house films. And when he made that film, it was his attempt to be commercial, and this is what he shared with me, and the producer shared with me anyway. It was designed for him to be a little more accessible to the Vietnamese general public, because most of his films are too heavy and too artsy, whatever that means. And so he constructed this. I'm sorry, I'm kind of talking without you even asking a lot of questions. But,
no, you're fine.
Yeah, he constructed it, so that he can make a martial art action film. And through a series of originally someone else, he actually had written it for someone else to star in, and it's actually my co-star in The Rebel, and somehow we all know each other. It's a small community, and somehow it all fell apart with them, and so when Lou, the director, approached me, I knew about the project, and I knew, Johnny from the Rebel, Johnny Nguyen, was attached to it. I was very hesitant to take it on, and so when it finally came on, this is what the producer told me anyway. After a week of filming, so after my first day on the set, they, of course, film being filmed, the very first day of filming, I filmed arguably one of the most difficult scenes in the film, which is a scene where I'm being tied up by the gangsters, and they break. I don't know if you recall. It's been a long time since you watched it, I'm sure, but the bad guy, he had taken the urn of my mom's ashes and threw it on the ground and urinated on it. It was a very heavy scene. And so we did that scene on the very first day of filming, you know. And so when Lou saw the scene, when the scene is done, I guess he told the producer, he turned to the producer and he says, oh, you know, I'm going to make, this film is a drama. I mean, yes, it has action, but he loves the drama so much that he kind of, you know, came back around to his forte, which is very sort of a dramatic, artsy kind of film, you know, and so it was kind of flattering in a way, but I think in my personal opinion, it kind of made the film suffer a little bit because, you know, the film is half martial art film and half drama. It didn't quite know what it wanted to be, so to get it's such a long-winded story. But what I'm getting to is when they released the film in Vietnam, they released it. The producer released it during the Lunar New Year, which is at the time, and I think still is, sort of the equivalent of the summer July 4th weekend that the Hollywood blockbusters used to come out. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. I do.
And so for Lunar New Year, of course, it's that equivalent for Asia and certainly for Vietnam. So they released it during that time, which is a major mistake because historically it's nothing but comedies. Because, you know, Asian people are very superstitious. You know, they don't want to see anything heavy at the beginning of the year. And even though the film went on to win, I believe, 6 or 7 sort of the Vietnamese Oscars, if you will.
You won the Golden Lotus, right?
I'm sorry?
You got the Golden Lotus Award for that, correct?
Yeah, I won the Golden Lotus Award, which is like the Vietnamese Oscar, and I also won the Golden Kite Awards, which is like the Vietnamese Golden Globes, you know, if you will. And I also, oddly enough, won Best International Actor for the Chinese, you know, the Chinese, the biggest film festival, the Thousand Flowers or something like that. They have every year. It's the biggest film festivals, and so we won for that too. I mean, I won for that. I was very surprised when I got the news. You know, in China of all places, you know, in the international category, the film was very well received over there.
Well, it was a very good movie. Here in America, though, they marketed it kind of screwy. Like, your name in America was Bruce Lee, and instead of saying like your dad was Bruce Lee, your name was Bruce Lee, but it was marketed. All that we saw were like the clips of you doing the nunchucks and then fighting some of the gangs and that. So it was, you know, labeled as like the one Chan and Sammo did, Heart of the Dragon. Almost like, here's this guy that's kind of slow and this is an action movie. So I remember when it came out, people were kind of like, boy, it takes like 50 minutes before any action comes in. It's like, no, this is like a drama and the kid just hasn't really exploded yet to what his mom has taught him. So I think that might have been what hurt it here, because that was, I think when I saw it was about the time Chan was really booming here, and you know, we're already past the era here of like the Seagals and the Van Dams, but I think Jackie Chan was still kind of doing it here.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Corey, you know, I you know, Lou, you know, in the end, you know, the movie didn't know what it wanted to be. You know, it had aspirations to be a drama. You know, a sort of maternal love story, and then it, you know, and the second half is like this sort of martial arts, the last third, if you will. So yeah, it's very confusing for marketing and so on. I mean, people who actually sat and watched the film, they were, in Vietnam anyway, you know, they were really blown away by it, because again, I think based on the trailer, they didn't expect too much of the film. I think they didn't foresee the emotional impact that the film had. You know, they thought it was just sort of this odd martial art hybrid drama. But anyway, I carried on enough about that film.
Well, see, I liked it because when I was little, I started studying martial arts. I'm 46 years old. I still study to this day. And so when I would watch even like 21 Jump Street, like the episode where you were in the kind of like the Guardian Angels type street gang and that, I could tell what you were doing was, you know, it was real martial arts, especially in V.I.P. You know, I could see like a lot of Taekwondo, Scream. I could see a lot of that style where everything else on TV was kind of fake. So it was kind of like, okay, I have to really keep up with this guy because he's really doing legitimate moves here on American television.
Well, again, I really appreciate that, Corey. It's a pleasure to talk to someone who is a martial artist because you know, as you probably know already, you know, that's my first love, martial arts, and it still is to a lot of degree. Actually, now it's my second love. Filmmaking has become my first, but martial arts, boy, I mean, you know, it's like you know, what you said. I'm very conscious. When I got into the business, I was very realistic. As enthusiastic as I am, and as well-rounded, if you will, in terms of my training, I've been fortunate enough to have different type of training. I would never consider myself a martial artist first, you know. So when I got into the business, I focused more on being a dramatic actor, and then later on, much later on, you know, I mean, on Jump Street, when the producers realized that I could do martial arts, they start to sort of weave it in, you know, to the show as wherever it's appropriate. But in general, if you look at my career before the Rebel, you know, with a few exceptions here and there, with a guest spot here and there, and then of course V.I.P. was full blown. But I'm not really. I didn't do a lot of martial arts. You know, there was a time I couldn't get an audition for serious martial art films. You know, films like you know, like Dragon. You know, Jason Scott Lee did a terrific job. Mortal Kombat. You know, films like that where you know, they wouldn't even see me for it. You know, because oh, this guy, you know, he's not a martial artist. You know, and so much later on, I got a chance to do it more. And but what I appreciate what you said is, you know, when I do it, I try to be as authentic as possible. That's also appropriate to the style of the film and the character. Because I'm very conscious. Because, you know, I'm like you. Sometimes I sit and I watch film, and you know, a martial art fight sequence begins in a film. You're like, oh no, you know, like this person doesn't really know what the hell they're doing, and you can just see it. You know, people like us, we can see it, or we can see, you know, like you said, sometimes you get surprised by a certain move that he or she does on screen. Oh, you know, he or she just mix some Muay Thai in there, or just mix some Scream, whatever, you know. So it's really a pleasure when I hear somebody like you sort of, you know, spot those things. Because again, I would never claim to be a martial artist, film actor. You know, I'm lucky that I get to do it once in a while, and I really enjoy it.
What I do, I started studying now. Because I've changed styles over the years as I get older, and I do Kenpo, and we do a lot of, you know, ball song, Kramatans, bolos, and stuff like that. Did you know Kenpo, or did you study more like the Arnaz Eskrima style of just fighting?
Yeah, I know of Kenpo. Of course, you know, growing up with Mr. Ed Parker. Mm-hmm. I remember, you know, he was sort of like the godfather of Kenpo, and so that was being exposed to the rudiments of it, but I never studied it. However, there are some very strong similarities, at least with the handwork, like you mentioned, that in Arnaz and Eskrima that I pick up from, and because I studied that quite extensively with Guru Dan Inosanto. But as far as Kempo, I would say I've never attempted Kempo.
So you learned Eskrima from Inosanto himself?
Yes, I learned. I started out, when I was 17, I moved to California with aspirations to go to film school, to be a director. That's another story. But also, I moved from the Midwest. I was a Midwest, Missouri kid, and so I started studying Taekwondo, and I started doing, the PKA kickboxing already, as it was becoming popular in St. Louis, Missouri. However, I was very well aware of Guru Dan Inosanto and the Jeet Kune Do and the Eskrima and the Kali. So when I moved to California, my second biggest aspiration is to somehow study with Guru. And of course, you come out here, you don't know anybody, and you start meeting this person and meeting that person, and I started studying at this kickboxing school in Santa Ana that also had an advertisement to teach Kali and Eskrima, and it was the instructor at the time was Guru Tet Luke. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he passed away now. God bless him. He was one of Guru Dan's finest students, and it was at the time. This was in the early 80s. He was one of the few people that were authorized to teach Jeet Kune Do and Eskrima and Kali. And so I got started with Guru Tet Luke, who's a wonderful teacher, and really took me under his wing. And from then I got introduced. That was sort of my way in to Guru Dan School, which is of course up in Los Angeles, and I was living in Orange County at the time. And so eventually, I met Guru Dan actually by chance. I was when I was studying under Guru Tet Luke, I was by this time I was, if I may say so, getting pretty good at kickboxing, if you will. So I was competing on an amateur level, and they used to hold fights in the Olympic Auditorium. This was in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Kickboxing was starting in Los Angeles, and they would have these fights in Olympic stadium that maybe like 500-600 people would come to it on a good night.
Mm-hmm.
So you get to fight in the 3 rounds card, and one of my fights were with one of the students of Guru Bani Akitis. And it happened to be that night Guru Dan Inosanto was there, and of course I didn't know. He came up to me after the fight because Guru Ted was working my corner, and he came up, and that was a really good fight. You did good, and so right there and then, I get a Guru Ted is like, oh, by the way, this is Guru Dan and blah blah blah. This is my student, and that was how my journey began. And I said to Guru Dan, I said, I really would like to someday study with you. And Guru Dan being who he is, yeah, just come down,
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? What do you mean, just come down? He teaches the advanced class, and so later Guru Dan said, hey, just come down to the academy, or in this case, come up from Orange County and come up to LA. So I would drive up, and we're just sort of ready to start, in the beginner class, and I figured, it'd take me a couple of years to get into Guru Dan's class, and I went up there, and he saw me in the class, and he's like, what are you doing? You should be in my class. And so he just dragged me right into his class, and that was sort of the journey began. He said, oh, you're good enough to, you catch up,
Well, I saw there was an episode, and forgive me, I don't know which one of V.I.P. where he used the Yantoks or the Eskrima sticks, and it was just, it blew me away. It was just so amazing. And to this day, like, I can do combos, I can fight with them, but I could never spin them and flip them and twirl them, like I had seen you do out in the scene. And I remember everybody would be like, oh, Jeff Speakman, Perfect Weapon, you guys see The Perfect Weapon, which is a great movie. Oh, he's so good at the sticks. And it was like, no, I was like, you've got to watch, you fought quick in VIP, I can't remember, but it was like, I was like, no, I said, the stick fighting in this is so amazing. You have to see this. But I had it on VHS tape, but I don't even have a VCR anymore. So,
well, when you start referencing stuff like that, it really dates us, Corey. VHS, and before VHS was a 3/4 inch tape. Remember those?
Oh, I have a Laserdisc player downstairs, actually.
The Laserdisc, of course. Yeah, I have a whole collection of Laserdiscs that are basically, collecting dust now.
That's the only way you can get Talons of the Eagle here in the States, and I had to have that movie, so I bought a Laserdisc player just for that.
What martial arts have you studied, Corey? If you don't mind me asking.
No, when I was a kid, all we had here was Taekwondo, and I'm kind of a bigger guy, so I did okay, and then I switched over to Shotokan. Then we finally had I'm from Nebraska, so we're not hillbilly small, but we're not that huge. But especially when I was a kid, it was more of a football city. So then I started doing judo. Then I trained Aikido. And then after just countless injuries and stuff like that, when my son, he's 10 now, he got his junior black belt in Taekwondo. And then, ironically enough, when he was 6, I showed him the perfect weapon. So we started studying Kempo together, and last month my wife actually started studying it with us.
Good Lord, the whole family. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. We have a pretty good teacher. He doesn't like so much the escrimas. He likes, in weapons training, he likes to use the tonfas, which is completely new to me because I've never used one in my life.
Well, if you were to get around to a scream or a collie one of these days, you find that you pick it up probably a lot easier than you think, because what I found is my personal experience is once you learn one weapon, the rudiments is almost there, because it's essentially just an extension of your arms, and once you learn one weapon and you start having it down, the transition, to let's say sticks, the collie sticks and things like that, you find it's a lot easier than you think.
What gave me a little delay is I was an uke for a kid during Aikido, and I was probably 28 at the time, and this kid was probably 15, and I had a good 100 pounds on him. And he looked terrible, and I told him, I was like, well, I'll make you look really good. I said, I'll uke for you. I'll stay after class and practice with you. So for an hour, I would let the kid, it was basically just a sidestep into a fist block with a clothesline that he was doing. And I would kind of give myself an extra little throw. I wanted him to, clearly this kid was bullied. I mean, and I wanted him to look good, have confidence. After working with him for about an hour, the mat was all sweaty. And when I did another fall for him, I slipped on my own sweat, and I put my elbow down to block it, and it went into my ribs. So I ended up cracking a couple of my ribs. So that was my end of Aikido study.
Oh, so sorry, Corey. Give me one second.
Sure.
My kid just spilled some stuff.
Oh, you're fine. How old are your kids?
Well, my oldest daughter's Guy, she's 7, and my youngest is Scarlett, she's 5.5. So they're still very young.
Oh, you have girls.
But yeah, both girls, and they're just they're just the apple of my eye.
They're probably not into superheroes, are they?
As a matter of fact, they very much are, and they're very much into martial arts. They're very much into yoga, into dancing. Especially my oldest. She loves. I enroll her in boxing for kids.
Mm-hmm.
She loves it. She's just natural. She loves to kick, and she loves to do gymnastics and stuff. And so they always play role. The two of them play role like superhero this, superhero that.
Do they watch the Marvel and DC movies and all that yet?
Well, no, they just see I just let them see the trailer. You know, I don't let them see the whole movie because their attention span. Well, Sky now, she can sit through a full film, but Scarlett, you know, it'd be hard for her to sit through a whole movie. But they watch a lot of the superheroes animation. You know, the Teen Titans.
Teen Titans Go.
Yep, exactly. They're obsessed with it.
I tell you what, when we're, I can just edit this. This is no problem. If you have like a post office box or something, I work for a lot of toy companies. I do tons of toy reviews.
Oh, how fun!
So much Teen Titans Go stuff you wouldn't believe. It would make me feel good to be able to send some to your daughters as a thank you for doing this.
Oh, wow, that's very generous of you. That would just make their day, make the whole year. Are you kidding me?
No,
I'll email you my address, and that would be again. That's so generous of you to offer it because they're obsessed with. Well, you know, kids. You know, they watch whatever they like. They watch it 1,000 times.
My son's 10, so when he was little, he got it. I think he got into Teen Titans Go probably when he was 7, and yeah, it was 24 hours a day. That was on.
My youngest Scarlett, of course, when they watch, you know, when they watch it together, they would role play, you know. So my youngest one, Scarlett, she, you know, her thing is Raven. You know, that's the character.
Oh yeah,
that's her. Yeah.
My son is he's 10 now. His name's Christian. He's into martial arts. So I do have to ask you this. I'll ask you this one next. I showed him Rapid Fire about a week ago. Now I remember because I knew he was Harry Truman Ioki. I think Rapid Fire was before V.I.P. And I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, Aoki's in this. I said, we're going to see some action. We got Aoki, and we got Ali Yong, and we've got Brandon Lee, and you didn't do anything. Was that because it was just strictly a starring vehicle for Lee, or?
Yes, I mean, it was designed, you know, for Brandon. And I remember, I mean, like I said, you know, at that time in my career, you know, no one would take me serious as a martial artist, and anyway, which is fine. But I believe that was my very first, if not second, feature film work, and so I was just quite happy to be in a movie, you know, with Brandon. I mean, I was aware of who he is, and of course, you know, who wouldn't be curious, right? You know, Bruce Lee's son.
Who trained him? I remember everybody was like, "Oh, Bruce Lee trained him." I was like, "I think Bruce passed when he was 5 or 6."
Basically, who is his godfather?
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't transcribe or air this. This is just kind of a question for me. If you don't want me to post it, you don't even have to answer it. I've talked to different stuntmen, and I know when they do, especially back in the day, how they would just hollow out bullets and take out the gunpowder. Do you think what happened to him on The Crow was just a tragic accident, or do you really think that was something like the all those conspiracy people think how he was murdered?
Well,
I always thought it was just an accident.
Yeah, you know, you could never say 100% sure about anything on this planet of ours. But for all the years working in this industry and understanding the behind the scene of filmmaking, unfortunately, I would stand by the fact that it was negligence. And instead of, you know, the sort of conspiracy theory, because I've seen it happen on film sets, and I've heard it from friends of mine who works on film sets with guns, and of course, you know, the Brandon Lee thing was so tragic, and it was very high profile because he was Brandon Lee, but before Brandon Lee incident, there's been others, sadly, on film set that shot themselves or accidentally killed by guns, and there's been people since Brandon Lee, and you don't hear about it too much because obviously it doesn't behoove. It's not good for the industry for the public to hear about these things too much. But unfortunately, it happens. In the best of intentions, and it happens whenever you have a situation where people are tired, people are trying to save money, and negligence happens, and you don't follow protocols. I mean, there's certain protocols with guns, and they're there for reasons, and some of these I'm about to say you probably read already, but so it might be redundant, but there's certainly, and again, even up to that point, as an actor, I think I might have handled a gun a couple times in my career as an actor. But I have guns myself, and I practice quite a lot of guns. So I know about guns, but the safety procedure on a set, there for a reason. For instance, it's a 3-step screening process that, whenever you have a gun coming onto the set, obviously there's got to be a weapon, they call an armorer, who strictly just handle guns and explosives. Well, guns. Explosives is a whole other department. And then, so a gun comes to the set. First of all, what we call the assistant director of the film set, you have to show him the gun. Right? You show him that it's safe by putting it up in the light and there's no obstruction in the barrel and so on and so on. And then next you got to show the actor who's firing the gun and the actor on the receiving end of the gun, so that they both are comfortable. Well, especially the guys on the receiving end.
Oh yeah.
Even though they're supposed to a safe distance, which is I believe give and take, I think at least 15 feet clearance. And so that's the second step. And then of course, lastly, I believe it's the director has to also see being shown. So you got 3 different steps where there's no obstruction in the gun when it's firing and all this stuff. And then of course, the minute the director yells cut, the armorer immediately goes and take the gun away from the actor or actors in the scene. They don't let them handle the gun for too long when it's not during action. Mm-hmm. So these things are there for a reason, and unfortunately with Brandon Lee's case, the night that it happened is a culmination of, like I said, of people just trying to scale back. They sent the gun guy home to save money, the armorer. So now the props guy has to handle the gun. Now he's a prop guy; he's not a gun expert, And then of course, I believe it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. Everyone's been shooting for weeks, and they're tired. And when you're tired, you're more prone to make mistakes. And you probably know this already. They brought the prop guys, gave the gun, and didn't check it against a source of light where he didn't realize there was a lead tip that had been lodged in the barrel. Well, you read about this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So had he checked it properly, he would have seen the lead tip lodge in the barrel. And everyone's rushing. On film set, you're always racing against time. I know that for a fact. And that's how accident happens. And they probably didn't do not probably, they didn't do the 3-step procedure because someone would have spotted that lead tip in the barrel. So for me, I'm very almost 100% sure that it was, unfortunately, an accident that happened by negligence, unfortunately.
Because I remember Inside Edition and Current Affair, all the tabloid shows, they picked up on it, and I am a fan of Mr. Steven Seagal, but he can be a little ridiculous in his interviews, and I remember he was kind of got the ball rolling, and then everybody else kind of bought into, that's how Bruce died in Game of Death, and it was like, No, if you watch the actual Cantonese Game of Death, they had to change a lot of that around. What we saw in the States was about, I think, a little more than half of footage that was just spliced together to make it. So
Yeah,
I never really bought into the whole. Just like when you mentioned the film Dragon, which I thought was a really entertaining film. Don't get me wrong. I had read like all of Bruce's books and everything, so it was like, well, this seems to be about 5% accurate as far as the life story.
Yeah, they really took, what we call creative licensing with that film.
Because I remember, like, they never touched that he was a child actor, that he was born here, and all. It was just kind of like, this is a really fun movie, but I don't think it's very accurate. I don't think he got on an actual fight to the death during the filming of The Big Boss.
Yeah. Well, it's movie making,
Oh, no, I loved the movie. I mean, it was a fun movie. I can't think of the actor's name that played him. Jason Scott Lee. Yeah. He was... Yeah. What did you think? Did you see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Yes, I did.
What's your take on the Bruce Lee scene?
Well, there's a big part of me that is a filmmaker, a storyteller, and I understand what and why Quentin Tarantino designed it that way. But the other half of me, being a Bruce Lee fan, it bothered me. It didn't bother me enough where I was, outraged. But it bothered me. I wish it would have been different. I don't think it had to be that way. I know why he did it that way, and it made sense. He wanted to establish what a badass Brad Pitt's character is, so that he can take on all these crazies, at the end of the film. And all that's fine. You can't really argue against that. But the flip side is, well, did it have to be Bruce Lee? And there's a little bit of and again, if I was in Quentin's shoes, I probably felt justified because, hey, this is how I want to tell, my story. But the fact that he didn't really, from what I read, okay, he didn't really reach out to Shannon Lee, which is fine, but I think it made matters awkward that he bothered to reach out to Sharon Tate's family and other characters that he was portraying to get their approval and cooperation or whatever. But for some reason with Bruce Lee, he felt like it was unnecessary. And he went on to portray him in not really a very flattering way. I wonder if he would have done the same thing if it was a Muhammad Ali, or you know what I mean? So that's to answer your question, it bothered me in that way. If you really start analyzing it. Now, had he sort of took some unflattering licensing with Sharon Tate's character, then the playing field will be even.
I assume.
Excuse me. Let me. For some reason, let me hang up. For some reason, because I'm talking to you, this other call comes in, interrupted it. Are you still there?
I am.
Okay. Let me. Sorry for some reason.
No, you're fine.
Okay, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay. That's my landline. We get these sort of soliciting phone calls, and they leave these messages. Anyway, go ahead. So that bothered me. I actually, I kind of felt for Shannon. I got a chance to get to know Shannon Lee the last 2 years doing this. I don't know if you where I was doing the show Warrior.
Yes.
Yeah, so I got to know Shannon, and I feel for her. I feel for her, and I get why she's more than unhappy with that portrayal.
This is going to sound weird because like I said, I'm 46 and American. So when a lot of my friends were like, I want to learn martial arts because of Bruce Lee. That was probably 99.9% of my friends. I was the one guy that wanted to learn it because of Shokasuke.
That's really cool. Well, that's another icon, you know. I mean,
Shokasuke and Sonny Chiba were my two favorites.
Yeah. I mean, you know, these are the people that really built the martial art genre. You know, before, all due respect, before Jet Li came along, you know, before all these people, Scott Adkins and all these really all talented people. But if you really talk about the pioneers that built the genre, are those people.
Well, when you did Once Upon a Time in Vietnam, you got to work with Roger Yuan,
who is a very, very, very good friend of mine, and I say that. I don't say that about a lot of people. Roger and I, you know, we were not anymore because we all have lives and kids, but when we were younger, you know, during my fighting days and my single days, Roger and I would train at the Benny Akitas gym. Literally, you know, as actors, you know, you go through a period where you're unemployed, and for us, we just train. You know, we're not big partiers, we're not drinkers, and so Roger and I and some other group every morning we would train literally, you know, 3 hours a day, you know, at the Benny Akitas Center. So Roger and I are very close, and so to have a chance to bring him over to work with him, you know, that was really a pleasure. And he was very generous to do it because it's really, you know, I wasn't paying him, I couldn't afford to pay him anything that normally he would get, you know, sort of in America. But, you know, he came and he knew it was my directorial debut, and he really came and supported me, and even, you know, had a lot of inputs in the fight choreography, even though I had a fight choreography and I had my own ideas about the fights. But of course, you know, when Roger steps in, you'd be foolish not to let him contribute.
Oh, he can fight. He is really good.
He not only can look good on screen, he's one of the few martial artists that I work with that can really fight in the ring. You know, I mean, again, I'm no disrespect to anybody. There's a lot of martial artists who are very good on screen, terrific on screen, but you know, you put them in the ring with full contact, now the whole other story, as you know. And Roger is one of the few guys I know, because I've seen it with my own eyes, you know, where in the ring, you know, where he's actually going up against a guy that has, you know, 40, 50 pounds on him, you know, and does quite well. So he's an incredible martial artist. I looked at it even now. I talked to him last week. Now that I'm back, we're supposed to get together next week, and you know, at his age, he's a year older than me, and he's still in terrific shape. You know, the guy is just incredible.
When I've always been a fan of Don the Dragon, and when I got to interview Mateus Hughes, I had asked him, I said, you know, I've seen you in all these films, I said, and I got to watch Don the Dragon just beat the holy hell out of you in black belt. I said, how bruised up were you? And he was like, you know, I never felt a single thing. He's like, it was like getting hit by a feather. So it was like, wow, then you read these stories of these other guys that have to throw a punch and they're breaking people's noses.
Yeah, they have no control.
Now, I know we're all over the place, and I don't want to keep you much longer, but when you... No,
that's fine. I'm enjoying this. I mean, you know, it's probably a bit unconventional interview, but I enjoy just kind of talking and whatever. You can just steer the conversation, you know, however you like.
I like to ask, you know, it's no secret to anybody that listens to my interviews, I ask a lot of questions that are of interest to me. Why did you leave Jump Street after season 4? How come you didn't do the 5th season?
Well, it was just a lot of people asked me that, including my agent at the time. She was like, "Are you crazy?" You know, and it was never something that was planned, Corey. I think Johnny and I kind of about the same time, you know, felt, well, let me speak for myself. You know, I felt like I couldn't do anything more with the character, and we had some changes with the showrunners. Our original showrunner was no longer around, and I just felt like during the fourth season, the show just kind of going in the direction that I wasn't too thrilled about, but that's fine because it's their show, or this particular showrunner at the time.
I thought you were extremely underutilized on that show. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and there's that too, and so you feel like, well, I'm not really creatively. I feel kind of stifled with the character, and that was just something that came to me and said, you know what, I'm not thrilled to go to work in the morning, so why stick around? Not in an arrogant way, anything like that. It just, I think it was just one of those things. My heart told me it's time to move on to what I don't know at the time, and I got a lot of flack from people, and some people thought that like I said, including my agent, she was like, oh, you got a nice steady gig here, and I was like, yeah, but I'm not happy. I'm single. I live pretty frugal or very conservatively. I felt like I made enough money where if I didn't work for a couple of years, that was okay. I didn't have kids to support, so it's easier when you're single, and yeah. So honestly, I just felt like it's time to go do something else, because if I'm not excited in the morning to go to the set, then I shouldn't be there, because I don't want to be one of those actors that come to the set and all bitter and kind of not happy and phoning it in, and I don't want to be one of those people, because I've seen those kind of actors on series when I was doing guest spots on different shows, and I just remember, wow, I don't want to be one of those people.
Did you, about a year ago, I got to interview Richard Grieco, and he didn't talk a lot about 21 Jump Street. I got the impression he wasn't not that he didn't like doing it by any means, but he didn't have fond memories, maybe would be the best way to say. Did you have fun? Because you were there since the beginning. Did you enjoy it? You're on a brand new network and hip new show, young cast. Did you have fun in, doing the show?
Oh man, it's one of the fondest memories of my life. I mean, what not to enjoy? When I came on the show, all of us really, we were nobody, and all of a sudden, I remember we this is back in the days when they still do 2-hour pilots, and we at the time we knew we were going to do the pilot plus 13 episodes, but that was it. I mean, in our mind, all of us, oh, this is an amazing, we're just so happy to have a job, and we didn't even look any further. Like, we knew that after 13 episodes, that was it,
Mm-hmm.
So we were just ecstatic to be there. Had a great time, and then all of a sudden, they renewed the show, and then we kept working, and we were working in Vancouver, Canada at the time, we were the first TV series to even go up there and do that. So we were very isolated from the public, if you will. But when the show started to catch on in America, we weren't around to see that. We were just working, and so next thing we knew, with the third season, and I remember, I think to the end of the second season, we had our first sort of PR outing at a mall. They were organizing this thing. The show, as we were told, the show was becoming really popular. We didn't quite know what that means. And then, and back then there was no social media or anything, and I remember they flew us from Vancouver on the weekend. We would work from Monday to Friday, and then on the weekend they flew us down to make our first appearance at the Sherman Oaks Galleria. And it's a big mall, and we're like, wow, it's great and all, but it's kind of like, how embarrassing would it be if we get there and there's 20, 30 people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't know what to expect, and it's like, and they're kind of making a thing out of it, and we were tired from working all week, and I remember we got there, and they walked us through the back door of the mall. We were going through the kitchen, if you will, and there was like bodyguards, and we're like, this is ridiculous thing, we're the most ridiculous thing we've ever seen. We felt like rock stars. And until we walked out on stage, that's when it was like, oh my God. I remember, I think there must have been at least 10, 15,000 teenagers. It took up 2 tiers of them all, and we were on the stage, and we walked out, and there was just this blast of street, teenage girls shriek, at the highest decibels you can get. But imagine, 10,000. There was a lot of people, as you remember, and the sound. And I kid you not, I literally felt sound wave hit us. It was a very surreal experience, and I remember thinking, we kind of all looked at each other. We were kind of like deers in the headlight. And I remember thinking, wow, this must be like a little bit of how the Beatles, rock star feel one day.
Oh, I mean, like, I can say from experience being in high school when that came out, it was like, okay, Johnny Depp's got 2 earrings. I got to pierce my ear again. Oh, wait, he's got both his ears pierced. There's 2 on the left, 1 on the right. Got to go do the left one this week. What's and you guys had you were the first show to really incorporate, the music. You had Suicidal Tendencies, Depeche Mode, everything.
Stevie Winwood, back in the highlight, that album,
And that was the only thing.
What's not to like? Like I said, we were young. We ended up on a really good show. It was well written, it was an honest show, and I had a terrific time. Like I said. And then when I stopped having fun, I had to kind of reevaluate what I was doing.
What Grieco, was he was he welcomed, like, I don't want to say welcome with open arms, or was it kind of like, oh, here comes a new hot guy trying to steal the thunder? Was that kind of what the thing was, or?
Well, unfortunately, it sort of became that. It's really unfair to Richard, because, and I can talk about this because after the fact, and there's no secret, but they meaning Fox was having some issues with Johnny and vice versa, and I think Johnny wanted to leave the show, and they wouldn't let him leave the show, and so there's a friction there, and I think Fox came up with this idea that, well, if Johnny wants to leave the show, we're going to bring somebody in like him, replace him. So they spent a lot of, if you recall, before Richard even came on the air, prior to that, they spent a lot of money and labor promoting him.
Oh, every commercial all summer was just him with the moosed up hair.
Yeah, they hadn't appeared in one episode yet, so it was just a build up, and they did a very good job with it. So when Richard came on, Johnny wasn't too happy about it, about how it was he felt like it was like Fox way or their way, the powers that be that sort of let him know that he was replaceable, kind of thing. And I think they were hoping that he would quit, but then he didn't. And he didn't, I think that was the wild card, Maybe it was his way of retaliating. I don't know, only Johnny would know. But the point is, he stayed on, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, now we got 2 guys who basically the same character on the show. What are we going to do with them, And so they, as a result, I think Richard only did maybe 6, 7 episodes or something. He wasn't on Jumpster very long, so they figured, well, we invest so much money building up Richard Grieco, so let's build a show for him and spin him off, right?
Oh,
and yeah, so they came up with this show Booker.
Horrible show.
Yeah, well, because it was ill-conceived. It was ill-conceived. They rushed it and whatever, and obviously it never worked. But that was, like I said, it was a little bit unfair for Richard because he came on. I actually spent quite a bit of time with him because I knew how awkward it is for him to sort of come on come into this sort of family that was established already. So I was very sensitive about that, and most of us, made an effort to certainly Peter, DeLuise, myself, made an effort to welcome him, if you will, as much as we could, but it was awkward for him too, I'm not, I'm not surprised that he didn't have a lot of fond memories of it. Yeah, nobody sling mud at him. None of us ever anything like that. So but I'm sure he felt comfortable.
He was a super nice guy. He just, I could kind of sense he doesn't want to talk about this. Let's talk about if looks could kill, because everybody that reads my website's a huge fan of that. But and I always was I think Johnny Depp. You probably hate hearing about Johnny Depp after all these years, but I really, in my opinion, believe currently in Hollywood he is probably the best actor out there. I've said that for probably the last 10 or 15 years.
He is an amazing talent, and it was there from the beginning. I adore Johnny. I don't see him anymore. Once in a while, there was a period where every 3 or 4 years we would run into each other at film festivals where I had one of my movies there, and he has one of his movies. I think the last time I saw him, years ago at the Toronto International Film Festival, I had a drama that I did called Little Fish, where I did with Kate Blanchett, and it was very well received film. And Johnny had another movie, I think one of his Tim Burton films, and we ran into each other, and it was just like yesterday. Nothing changed. And so I've always had fond memories and fond thoughts of him, but his talent was very apparent, from the very beginning. And I think he felt that's part of the reason he felt very limited on a TV show like 21 Jump Street.
How did VIP come about?
Stroke of luck. I tell you, Corey, I've had so much luck in my career. And honestly, I had a chance to. I think about a year before I joined V.I.P. As fate has it, I landed a Levi's commercial. I don't know if you ever saw it, but you get a kick out of it. It was in the commercial world, Levi's is top end, one of the top. I mean, they spend a lot of money on their campaign, and they make high quality commercials that actually win a lot of awards. Sort of the Oscars of commercials. I think they call it the Clio Award. Mm-hmm. And they have big directors, Spike Jonze and all these people, and Jonathan Glazer. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He did Sexy Beast. He did Birth. He did some very, very amazing filmmaker. But at the time, he was the top 3 or 4 in commercial world, and he did this Levi's commercial. I think it was the first time, and I don't think possibly be the last time they actually used an Asian for their as a central character for their campaign, worldwide campaign. And this commercial, and you can find it on YouTube. It's called Levi's Kung Fu.
Okay.
And it's an homage to Bruce Lee and the 70s Hong Kong films. And I remember when they were casting for it, everybody in town went out for it. And I mean, every Asian American was vying for it. And I remember my agent wanted me to go out for it, and I said, oh, I was under the impression that they were doing this Bruce Lee thing, and that was kind of offensive, because I didn't know much about it. But from what I heard, it's a commercial, a jeans commercial, and they're probably doing one of those, really sort of offensive sort of Bruce Lee exploitation kind of thing. So I didn't even bother, and I don't do commercials either. That's a whole different kind of acting. So I have an aversion for that kind of a thing. And again, I really believe in fate. Somehow at the end, my agent sent my tape in anyway, and they really wanted to see me, and so he called me and he said, look, you know, they don't want you to audition, just come in and talk to them. And so I went in and I met Jonathan Glazer for the first time. At the time, I didn't know who he was, and he showed me the storyboard, and it's you know, it's essentially a little short film. You know, I think it was a 2-minute short film. In the end, I think they cut a minute version, and they had a 2-minute version that they were playing in the cinemas all over Europe before a movie would start. Yeah, they spent like $1.6 million, Corey, on this commercial. This is years ago, okay? Close to maybe 15 years ago. Typical spending for high-end commercials, anyway. But it was a 7-day shoot, and I won't tell you much about it. But the central character basically is Bruce Lee, and it's very cleverly done. So when this commercial came out, one of the executives at Sony, I saw it, and so they wanted to meet with me, and I came in and I met with them. I was really surprised because I did the commercial and I didn't think anything of it at all, and they offered me a guest spot on V.I.P. To the end of the first season, and after that I did the guest spot. I guess they were just really thrilled, and they said, well, you know, we really want to bring you on, your character on as a regular from now on. And I said, oh wow, you know, so that just kind of fell on my lap because of this Levi's commercial. Actually opened, you know, quite a few doors for me. Prior to that, I actually also Disney from that commercial. Disney let me develop a 1-hour action pilot that I was an executive producer and star in, and I co-wrote the script. The pilot didn't go anywhere, unfortunately, but it all came from this Levi's commercial, which is just really well done. You know, when you watch it, you see why I think some people were kind of enamored by it. That's how I got V.I.P.
Now you filmed that up in Canada, Vancouver as well, didn't you?
No, that was all done entirely in Los Angeles.
Oh, that was done in L.A., okay.
All in Los Angeles. And I actually, you know, at the time I was really into motorcycle racing, you know, at the track. And
oh, you had that nice Ducati in that show, I remember.
Yeah, it was my idea to bring the Ducati. You know, originally they were going to put me in another car on the show, and I said, no, I have this idea, you know, should have my character ride a motorcycle, like a Ducati. And at that time in America, most people didn't know what a Ducati was, unless you're really into the bike scene. You know, it's really about the Suzuki and the Honda. And so I talked to Ducati, and they were also, at that time, they were very eager to have their product sort of being showcased, you know, on a TV show to build their brand. So it was the right timing. But yeah, you know, so the bike came onto the show, and it almost became like a little bit of a character on the show.
I remember shortly after that, I had the privilege of falling off one 3 times because I didn't realize the acceleration on those is so much different than a normal bike.
Yeah, they are, man. They'll sneak up on you.
I have to ask. What was no secret to anyone reading and listening to this? I've always said the most beautiful woman in the world was Pam Anderson, in my opinion, and second was Molly Culver. What was Pam Anderson like? You know, everything you read about her is negative, but she always seems like she'd be a neat, nice person.
Well, I had the privilege, and I use that word purposely, to really get to know her. You know, because when you work with these people, you know, you day in, day out, you know, she and Molly and all the women on the show are certainly beautiful, but you know, they come in the morning, you know, and without makeup, and they're still beautiful, but they're different, you know, and then they get glamorized, and Pamela, contrary to her public image, which she is very aware of and very meticulously managed, is a very smart woman. She's very savvy with business. She knows who she is as a brand, and she was very instrumental on V.I.P. So in terms of the creative direction with Jonathan J.F. Lott, who's the creator and the executive producer of V.I.P., worked very closely with her, and so she wasn't just a pretty face that sort of was the lead in the show, but she was very savvy, and she has a very warm heart. She comes from Vancouver, she's Canadian, from a small town, Vancouver, and the Pamela that I got to know, is a very warm heart, but like the thing that most people don't know is she's very smart, she's very savvy, and that's Pamela. You don't see that in her sort of public image.
I've always been afraid to reach out to her agent for an interview, but I did reach out to Molly Culver's agent last week, I remember, but Pam, I'm a little afraid. I don't think Pam Anderson would take, I don't think she does many interviews. I think, from what I gather, she's, the press doesn't paint her in a good light, which I don't really like.
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, some of the things that was written about her, obviously had some, when she went through her period, I mean, when you with Tommy Lee Jones, and I mean, there's a certain image that comes with that, so it's a tough one, but
and then that's her business, I don't ask questions about, just because you're in the public eye doesn't mean you don't have your own life, I guess, is the best way to say it.
Yeah, it's a tough juggle for those kind of people, Corey. It's really tough.
Is it true around that time you tried out for the part of Liu Kang in the Mortal Kombat film?
I don't know where that trivia came from. I mentioned to you earlier that they wouldn't even see me for those kind of movies. And I remember reading about it, and I actually got to know Robin through some mutual friend, and he's another nice fellow.
Oh, he's a hell of a martial artist, too.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But, yeah, I don't know how that trivia got around, funny enough,
I like the Mortal Kombat. Actually, I have a Mortal Kombat arcade machine in my office here at home.
Well, the remake is coming. The reboot, the remake, whatever you call it.
Yeah, my son's pretty excited. Sometimes I have to let him beat me a few times at the game, but he likes playing that one a lot too. He liked the first movie. He liked it a lot better than the Street Fighter movie with Van Damme.
Oh yeah, I have to agree. I'm not a huge fan of Mortal Kombat, but I like the first one, and I'm looking forward to the reboot only because I know very little about it, but only because one of my close friends, Joe Taslim, who I got a chance to work with in the last 2 years on Warrior. Joe Taslim, who was in The Raid, and becoming quite an action star in his own right.
Oh, The Raid's a hell of a good movie.
Oh yeah,
both of them were good.
Yeah. So Joe, he's I think he's playing Sub-Zero in the new reboot. I'm wishing filming him the best. Yeah. So you mean like those movies, I mean, the remake of Mortal Kombat, there's another one called Snake Eye, which is a spin-off of G.I. Joe. I mean, all those films, I'm never on the list for those things, you know what I mean? Because people just don't think of me as people in the industry, in Hollywood anyway, think of me unless they see The Rebel or they see something like that. With Warrior, especially with did you get a chance to see Warrior?
My wife watches it religiously.
Yeah. Well, the second season, which is I think it's going to air October, is fantastic. I mean, they did a pretty good job of the first season, but the second season is really going to, and my characters basically just, the baddies of the baddies, so it's a really fun character. The big troublemaker. He's kind of like, he's I love my character on Warrior because it's very similar to my character on The Rebel, but more flamboyant. More not flamboyant, but more colorful.
There's one thing I never got about The Rebel. Were you supposed to be mystical?
Well, there's two sequences that didn't make the final cut, and I wish it did. That explains a little more the idea that I brought. It wasn't in the script originally. It was in the script that you couldn't cut me, and then I said to the director, I said, well, what is this? Are we doing fantasy? What are we doing? What kind of world are we in? And he said, well, I just thought, this guy, and he's good with internal energy, and you can't cut him, And I said, well, some people who are hardcore martial artists would extrapolate that, but most audiences would probably wondering, like, what the hell's going on? Is he Superman, or what's going on? So I said, well, let's make him a guy that practices iron shirt kung fu, and dabble a little bit in black magic, which is very indigenous to Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos and Thailand at the time, and in Indonesia to some extent. So there's two sequences that actually shows me practicing the internal energy and the iron skin, iron shirt kung fu, and also dabbling in black magic. But those sequences didn't make the final cut. So some people were a little bit confused about that, and kind of like what you asked me,
Yeah, I was like, I think he's supposed to be not so much a sorcerer, but some type of maybe just mystical and evil.
Yeah,
not
he dabbled in black magic, and as a result, it's kind of like the candles burning both ends, His sacrifice, the deal that he made with the devil, so to speak, metaphorically, is that it shortened his lifespan, and it affects his health in some degree. And that's why his hair is graying prematurely and falling out. Some of it's falling out. And there's a sequence where, in the film, where you actually see his hair falling out, but people are not sure what's going on there because you don't get to see the other sequence.
One thing I've noticed from certain scenes in Jump Street, quite a few in Legend is Alive, a lot of the films, they have a lot of I'm trying to think how to phrase it. They have a lot of it's the only time in my life I've ever been at a loss for words because I don't know how to phrase it.
What's the idea? What's the concept?
There's a lot of religious undertones in some of the scenes for Buddhism. Are you if you don't mind me asking, are you a Buddhist?
Well, technically, I'm a Catholic because my
me too.
My wife and her family is Catholic, and my father, he was one of those non-denominator. He was more of a spiritual person. He actually sort of had chosen Mother Mary as his sort of spiritual guidance. But so I had that influence without being forced to be a Catholic. Vietnam, as you might or might not know, is 50% Catholicism and 40% Buddhism. So I also grew up, my grandmother was a Buddhist. So I was exposed to a lot of Buddhism, which I find very agreeable with me. But I was never, I was never, my parents never really, well, you got to be this, you got to be that, and we were very open, if you will, religiously. And when we came to America, we were sponsored by a Methodist church as well. And when we went to, every Sunday we would go to church and listen to the preacher, and that was fine. But also there's a part of us that's the Buddhist. But now I'm officially Catholic, because I married my wife. I felt like, okay, I'm fine with it. And there's a lot of teaching in Catholicism that I find essentially they all say the same thing, Corey.
Yeah, I'm practicing Catholic. I've studied a lot of religions, so yeah. Basically, at the end, is my opinion's always been As long as you believe in something, that's what counts.
Yeah, there's a higher power than you are. You know, be kind to people, and you know, this is just basic principles to live by. You know.
In the same sense, I'm also very fascinated with. I don't know if you want to call them superstitions, but like, especially in the Asian culture, like onis, hyenas, stuff like that. I'm actually in the process of tattooing half my body in Asian artwork, like a yakuza. So I'm very fascinated by all that kind of stuff, like the ghosts and the demon aspects and everything as well.
Sure.
So that's kind of
I'm not. You know, I'm not a very superstitious person. And it's interesting to live in Asia because you're surrounded by it.
That's the big running gag, is that if I ever take a trip to Japan, I'll either get to take my picture with someone or I'll get murdered in an alley because of my tattoos. So, are you yourself into like horror films, martial arts films?
The martial films or the horror films? What?
Both.
Well, of course, you know, martial films. I haven't, the last few years, I haven't watched a lot of them, except for the ones that all of a sudden everyone talking about, like The Raid and all that. Because for a while, as you know, the martial art genre just sort of had its dip. But in general, I'm a fan of theirs. And of those films, I don't watch all of them. I usually watch them because I know somebody in it. You know, like if it's Scott Adkins. You know, everyone watches his film now because he's sort of like the latest guy, and he's extremely talented and also an extremely nice guy. And then, or you know, the Ecos and Joe. You know, the guys from The Raid. I'm a friends of theirs and fan as well. So whatever films they're in, of course, inevitably I will watch it. Horror films, I never was a big fan of horror films at all. I never really get horror films for myself. I just don't see the logic of subjecting myself to fear of some of the ridiculous fear for 2 hours. Not just me, you know. However, in the last couple of years, there has been what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like a subdivision or subspecies of the genre that are of horror films that are very, very well done and very intelligent. You know, for instance, I tell you, the film that got me watching horror films lately is A Quiet Place.
Oh, my wife was a big fan of that one.
It's a beautiful film, and call it horror, call it whatever you will, but it's a beautiful story, and that's the film that got me paying attention to some of the new horror films genre that is now sort of, like I said, a particular subdivision of the genre that is very smart and very well done. And another one that was another terrific, Hereditary. Did you see that?
Is that the one where the guy had like the computer thing in him?
No. Hereditary is what's that wonderful Australian actress in it? It's just this family coming back to the countryside and find themselves involved in this cult that happens to be in the family for generations and didn't know about it. Toni Collette, wonderful actress, amazing in it. Toni Collette, if you have to see this film, like I said, I mean, it's an amazing, it's quite dark, but films like that got me interested in watching certain horror films. But in general, I'm not a fan of horror films. It's an open door.
Let Scott Adkins know I'm looking for him.
Well, I'm surprised you haven't interviewed him yet. He's a really nice guy, and I know, like, with actors, initially you have to go through the agent and whatever, and sometimes that can be a pain in the butt, depends on who the agent or publicists are.
He's my son's hero.
I'm sorry?
He's my son's hero.
Well, he's my hero. The guy is so talented.
Well, you know, if you ever make a movie and you need a henchman number 3, that's what I was born to play.
Number 3, okay.
Number 3, yeah, I got to be in the background. Once again, hey, I got to tell you again, thank you so very much.
Thank you again. You have a good night.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. You have been listening to the Chronicles of Hollywood History. Thank you from Gomez Richmond Productions.